Welcome to today's webinar, which is focused on adapting the office to satisfy an increasingly health-conscious workforce. I'm Ann Cosgrove, the Editor-in-Chief of Facility Executive Magazine, and this webinar today is presented by Varidesk. Before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. Please note the control panel on your screen. This is where you can submit questions in the question box in that panel. We'll do a Q&A at the end of the presentation. Please send your questions in at any time, however, and our speakers will address them after the presentation. Also, please note the orange arrow that is on the left side of your control panel. Clicking on that arrow will either expand or collapse the panel, so please be sure it is expanded so you can access the question box. You can also use that question box to send us any messages about any technical difficulties you may be experiencing, so please use that question area as well, and we'll get back to you right away on that. Now, I'd like to introduce your speakers today. David Patton is the Director of Industrial Design for Varidesk, and David oversees the design of all Varidesk products from the ideation phase to eventual launch. He plays an integral role in the look, feel, and functionality of each Varidesk product. A lifelong designer, David has led design teams that have built everything from interior and exterior lighting to the production of various types of furniture. And today, David's leadership in the design of the first Varidesk has helped transform the way that height-adjustable desks are marketed, sold, and used around the world. David is joined by Varidesk's Brad Shipp, who manages global corporate relationships for the company. He's also responsible for helping drive the content strategy in the US, Australia, and Europe. With a long history in political campaigns, event management, and public relations, Brad has built a robust advocate program from the hundreds of thousands of Varidesk customers. And this allows customers to tell their own stories about using Varidesk products in their offices and as well as in their homes. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brad. Hi, Brad.
Hi, Ann. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Really one of the reasons we're here today is because today's workforce is keenly aware of workplace health and wellness. Wellness plans, fitness programs, and active office designs are not really considered an added benefit anymore. Really, people have come to expect from companies these offerings. So, David, how in the world did we get to this new awareness, and how did everything come about on sort of active office designs in the workplace?
Well, over the past few years, there's been an explosion of research into the effects that sedentary lifestyles had on our overall health. I mean, we've all seen it. There's always a new headline about how your chair is killing you. Even the Mayo Clinic has said sitting is the new smoking. Now, we know that being sedentary and inactive for a majority of the day, 5 days a week, is affecting us physically, it's affecting us mentally, emotionally, and even impacting our job performance and productivity. All of this scientific data and the media coverage around it has really raised awareness about how sedentary the traditional office is and the need to offer employees opportunities to incorporate more movement throughout their workday. You're actually going to hear me reference a lot of those studies and statistics during this presentation. All of my comments with regard to medical benefits are based on publicly available research. So if you want to learn more and check out the research for yourself, you can visit our resource page at varidesk.com/resources, which it'd just be fun for you to go to the website anyway, because it's a pretty cool website.
Yeah, it's a great website. Give me an idea of kind of how Varidesk started. I mean, you were here from the very beginning. You were part of, the need for a height-adjustable desk offering. So give me sort of the backstory of Varidesk, because I really think it leads to why we're this whole active office movement that we're in right now.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it all started with our founder, who actually had a sciatic nerve problem, and he was looking for a way to just be able to stand up. And I remember the conversation very clearly. I mean, all he was really looking for was a shoebox, something to get his monitor up, something to get his keyboard up. But we really thought, as we got into the process, that we could do something better. And of course, that, his sciatic nerve problem, coupled with this new awareness of the sitting problem, is actually the reason Varidesk exists. Our need for an active office solution woke us up to the wider need for effective and affordable solutions, because we weren't the only ones having this issue. So we realized it was time for us to reimagine our workspace and make it healthier and a more productive environment. And then we just decided that we could help other companies do exactly the same thing.
So Varidesk started because of pain in the rear end.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, basically.
Nice. All right.
Basically.
Excellent. So one of the things that I know that we wanted to talk about was the effects of a sedentary workday and the sedentary work on people's lives. Can you kind of give us some ideas of some of the research that's out there, some of the things that, if you're living a sedentary lifestyle that academics and physicians are saying are really the problem?
Yeah, I mean, some of the same chronic lifestyle diseases that people associate with smoking have been associated with excess sitting. I mean, too much sitting is associated with type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer. The American Association for Cancer Research suggests a statistically significant association between physical inactivity and the risk for pancreatic cancer, which is super scary.
That's like
Just
the real
on
bad
its
one
own.
too, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's like that's the
that's
one
about as bad as it
yeah,
gets.
you don't want that one.
Yeah. So, multiple studies have found that excess sitting has negative cardiovascular and metabolic effects that are independent of whether adults meet physical fitness or activity guidelines. I mean, basically, the more you sit, the higher your risk for chronic disease and early mortality.
You kind of mentioned you mentioned diabetes, which I think that's if you take a look at the research and especially type 2 diabetes, the explosion of type 2 diabetes in society has been, especially in Western cultures, has been extraordinary over the last 40 to 50 years. And it's also associated with being obese. Um, so weight gain is also a part of sitting too much during the day.
Right, I mean, sitting's part of it. Excess sitting is correlated with excess body weight and obesity. I mean, for every hour that you spend sitting, you can lose up to 16% of the benefits you gain from a workout. So
Which makes me very sad that I wake up early in the morning to work out.
right, I mean, think about it. You wake up early, you're tired already, you put in that extra effort, you get in the gym for an hour, and you're essentially talking about 10 or maybe possibly as much as 15 minutes of that are just being thrown out the window because you went to work and you just sat down. But if your company is invested in an on-site gym or an employee gym membership, you don't want to negate the benefits of those perks. So being active outside the office, really isn't enough because 8 to 10 hours of sedentary behavior can cancel out that activity. That's why encouraging regular movement throughout the day is so important.
And clearly that brings us back to kind of back pain. Back pain is it's a real problem especially in America and in kind of all Western societies where people are sitting a lot. Give me some ideas about some of the statistics around back pain in modern culture.
Right. I mean, I have back pain. I spent 20 years in the seat before we, came up with this concept. And so, statistics show that the vast majority of adults will experience back pain at some point in their life. So I feel like I'm a part of that crowd. Excess sitting weakens abdominal muscles and gluteal muscles and tightens hip flexors, which is a recipe for chronic back pain. I mean, I know the last time that I went to, my doctor, he told me that my hip muscles are weak, specifically because I wasn't using them,
Yeah.
So, with those things in mind, I mean, the World Health Organization found that prolonged static postures, sitting or standing, can lead to musculoskeletal disorders.
And I know we're going to talk about that later on, but that's really important. It's about sitting and standing. It's about moving throughout the day, right? It's not just about being sedentary in one position.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're not just, we're not here to advocate that you should stand all day. It's a combination of activities about being active, up and down.
Right. So what are other problems that we consider when we talk about some of the negative effects of sedentary work?
Right. Well, there's just, some general problems to consider. I mean, inactivity is bad for you regardless of your fitness level. Even people who work out regularly and eat healthy can have sitting disease for some of the reasons that we talked about. Being sedentary is associated with higher blood sugar and blood pressure. Those are two important markers of chronic disease. There's also stress management. A study by the University of Queensland in Australia showed that people who used activity-promoting desks were able to manage their stress better than their sedentary colleagues. And of course, there's decreased cognitive ability.
So basically, sitting makes me not as smart. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it may make you not able to think as swiftly.
That's a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah, because you're a smart guy.
Oh, thanks.
Don't worry about that.
All right.
Studies of both workplaces and classrooms have found that people using sit-stand desks showed increased cognitive brain function and an improved ability to pay attention and accomplish tasks. Now, I can tell you that for me, that's very important, especially in the design department. So I promote a lot of stand-up meetings, making sure that when we're having collaborative discussions that we're doing that standing when possible.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, it's funny because this is really, sitting all day long and being sedentary in a seated position all day long, it's really kind of a new phenomenon. But if you think about historically the way people moved. I mean, there is the old adage, thinking on your feet, right? I mean,
Right.
like there's a reason somebody says it. He thinks well on his feet, or she thinks well on her feet. So
Right. I mean, some of the best, creatives in the world did so on their feet. Everybody knows, well, maybe not everybody, but Ernest Hemingway, famous author, did all of his writing on his feet, probably always all of his thinking on his feet. Thomas Jefferson,
he actually designed his own standing desk, right?
He did.
Yeah.
He did, in fact. So it's interesting that as a culture that, some people had this figured out, but then somehow society had changed to where we're sitting all day.
And I know you and I've talked about this before. They actually used to have school desks a long, long time ago that you could sit and stand at, correct?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, when we started out, we started to uncover these facts that it's not a new phenomenon. It's something that was being done. I mean, you can look in 19th century classrooms. There's documentation. In fact, even locally to us here in Dallas, there's a heritage village where you can actually go and see some of these old desks that were designed to allow the students to stand when the teacher wanted them to stand and then sit back down again. It's really interesting how we kind of got off track, and now here we are again.
And now from early days to even
Right.
later on, it's all sit still, stay seated, don't move, be quiet.
Yeah, we're right back to that again, but it's nice to see that some people are taking action to change that.
Yeah. All right. So clearly, I mean, we've talked about some of the negative effects of not being active or being sedentary throughout the day. So what are some of the benefits of an active office as people could begin to adopt height adjustable desk, adopt various active office designs? What are the things that people are saying and telling us, and what are some of the research that's saying about these active office designs?
Right. Well, if we can get to creating a non-sedentary work environment, it's definitely going to help combat the risks of sitting disease, which I know we've talked about them, but I'm going to reiterate them. You can lower your blood sugar levels and your blood pressure. You can engage more muscles in the body on a regular basis. It keeps your metabolism revved up, improves your circulation. These are all things that are great recipes for productivity. Then, of course, there's alleviating back pain. A recent ergonomic study found that using a sit-stand desk can reduce discomfort in your shoulders, hands, and wrists and upper back. In another study by Texas A&M, standing desk users had a 75% decrease in bodily pain. And since back pain is the #1 cause of missed work days, anything that can provide relief can also reduce absenteeism and employee morale.
That's kind of amazing that back pain is the #1 people miss work.
Yeah, and from my own experience, back pain is one of the things that I hear in feedback. Like when people talk about sit-stand desks and they say, "Oh, I love your desk because now I don't have back pain." That's one of the top things that I hear.
Well, I was talking to someone that's in charge of a benefits program for a major company here. We actually are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They run benefits for a major company here in the area, so they have thousands and thousands of employees throughout the world. And that person was telling me that it's true for them. Back pain every year is the #1 reason people miss work. It's also it's the second most costly health spend that they have every year behind cancer. So I mean, it's just alleviating that one thing, just alleviating that one issue, or helping to alleviate that one issue, can go a long way to helping out a company.
Right. And if you think about if your employees are concentrating on their pain, then they're not concentrating on their work.
That's a valid point.
So another big benefit that I definitely want to discuss is the weight loss and the burn calories. I mean, standing burns more calories than sitting. That's obvious. But standing burns up to 1.6 calories a minute, and sitting burns as little as 0.8 calories a minute. Now, I want to stop on that figure and say, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I want you to think about the cumulative effect that has. And I'm going to go back to using myself as an example. I sat in a regular chair like every other office worker of my generation. And if I could go back and get those 15 to 20 years back of sit-stand, and I think about the amount of calories, I mean, just standing for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week can burn an extra 650 calories a week.
That's like running a 10K. Right? It's like running marathons every year, multiple marathons every year, just in calorie burn.
Right. And if you think about the compound effect that's had on your overall health, it's a big deal. It's a bigger deal than it sounds.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, lastly, this is another thing that I think plays into what I do for a living quite well, is it encourages collaboration and creativity. A University of Washington at St. Louis study found that a non-sedentary work environment improves creativity and enhances collaborative work, and I can tell you that that's true from my personal experience.
I know that we have there's some other benefits as well that talk about productivity. Can you touch on just a few more benefits from an active office point of view?
Right. So, cognitive ability. I know we talked about that.
I'm going to become smarter now.
Yes. Well, if that's possible.
It's possible.
Well, research shows that active workers show a boost in brain function. So there you
go.
There you go. The ability to pay attention and task completion. Basically, when you're not sitting all day, you think better and work better. There's stress control. The research also shows that people in an active office are able to manage their stress better than their sedentary colleagues, and they experience less anxiety and depression overall. So, another, probably the last point I'd want to make on this is a big one, because I hear this one a lot too, is that they feel like by standing, you can maintain your energy levels throughout the day. The afternoon slump, as it's called, you had lunch, it's sitting in your stomach, you start to get a little tired, it's common. By standing or moving instead of sitting, you stay alert and energized. Caffeine and sugar, which are the things that we've always kind of gone back to, will only give you a temporary lift and then make you crash. You don't really have that problem with standing, and that's something that I hear a lot.
I mean, that's the thing. One of the bigger things that you notice right away is I used to, before I started working at Veridesk, I actually, in the afternoon, I would go get a cup of coffee, or like in the winter, I'd go get some hot chocolate or something like that. And I just don't have that need anymore.
Right.
It's just, you just almost don't even feel that sort of crash happen in the afternoon. It really is, it's an amazing, because now that's a real productive part of my day. We're used to, you're sitting there and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm just tired, and you start yawning. Now, stand up,
right.
Work on through.
I completely agree, and I'm not going to lie, I still drink a lot of coffee. But that's because I feel like the world is conquered on coffee. So.
Absolutely. All right, so we talk about reimagining the workspace a lot. We do that at Veridesk. We help companies sort of reimagine the workspace. What is it facility executives can do today? What is it that they can take from this conversation that we're having that really can help them begin to reimagine the workspace?
Right. Well, we know that it doesn't really take much to counteract these ill effects that we've been talking about. I mean, all you have to do is avoid the health risks is really break up your sitting time regularly with standing or light activity. I mean, when you think about an active office, you may think of a facility with a gym, which is a great perk, but you don't have to have one in order to create an active, non-sedentary environment. For instance, one really great thing that we did, in our offices at Veridesk is we centralized our garbage. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but by centralizing our garbage, having one location where people have to get up from their desks to throw something away, to recycle something, it's an everyday opportunity for exercise. And that's really what you're looking for, is everyday opportunities, for some kind of active fitness. And plus it has the added perk, I'm sure that any facilities executive could appreciate, of not having to go around to each individual employee's office space and emptying their garbage.
Because for us, that'd be about 150 trash cans.
Right.
As opposed to, 4 or 5 trash cans?
Yeah, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of labor, and doing the simple step kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. You're encouraging people to get up and throw things away. You're encouraging them to keep their spaces a little bit cleaner. And you're also cutting down on the labor and the time of going around, and that one employee who throws a banana in the trash can.
And then goes on vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just a lot easier to manage, and I think it gives you that great perk.
One of the great things I think we did also when we moved into our office is we centralized the coffee. Speaking of coffee, I mean, I still drink a couple cup of coffees in the morning, but we have one location in our office to get coffee. So there's not sort of 5 or 6 stations throughout the office space where people can grab coffee. You go to the central part, you see people, you maybe drink half a cup of coffee with somebody from the other side of the building that you don't see very often. And so, it does encourage sort of that collaboration in that, oh, hey, I had a great idea, or maybe you should call this person. So it's a way to sort of see and interact with other people that you don't maybe not normally run into because they just work on the complete other side of the building.
Absolutely.
Plus, you only have one pot of coffee to clean up. I mean, we have a big coffee pot, but
Right.
there's not 5 to clean up throughout the building.
Yeah, like you said, it improves those relationships between employees. It forces them to get up and take a walk, keep that metabolism going. These are a couple of really simple things you can do without really spending a lot of money.
And maybe saving.
Yeah, and definitely saving.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the more ideas to kind of reimagine the workplace as people kind of go forward? Is maybe they adopt one or two of those ideas, but they want to do more. They want to take it to the next level.
Right. So once you've kind of decided that you want to move past some of these other, little changes that can have big impacts, you could go straight into just getting a desktop standing desk. Our models require no tools or installation. There's no labor costs involved. There's very little to no disruption at work. They're very affordable. We have some solutions as low as $175, and of course we have free delivery. There are many sizes and models to choose from to fit your existing work environment, and we even have cubicle models available.
Yeah, it's talking about the cubicle models. I was talking to a facility executive that he has 8,000 employees in a northeastern city. I won't name the company, but I mean it's a big workforce. And he said 99% of the people at his company work from a cube. And he was talking about the millions of dollars that they have invested in this cube environment. And I just asked him, why are you interested in Varidesk? What it was about Varidesk that makes you one of our customers? And he was talking about how just the problems you have on having to retrofit a cube environment. It's time intensive. It takes a full team to come in and do a retrofit, and goes for a sit stand version or desktop riser like you guys have. He said, I just order it, I send it to the person whose desk it's going to. They have a buddy that helps them clean off their desk, put the Varidesk on top, and then they've got a sit stand desk, and boom, it's just that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And to put it in another context, just kind of a different way of saying what you said, I mean, some of the first people we talked to were facilities managers. When we first started thinking about, if we were going to help other people, how do we do it, right?
Right.
And it's the cost involved in getting rid of all of that investment. So with this desktop solution, keep your original investment. Again, you can step into this by simply buying, a desktop unit, keep what you have. The hardest part you're going to have of the whole thing, of what you just described, is getting that employee's desk clean.
Yeah, we were working with the Container Store. Their headquarters is just around the corner from our offices, and we did about 120, 130 desks, and by far and away, I was talking to the facility manager over there, and she told me that by far and away the hardest thing was to get people to clean their desk. So we could come in and come in and put a desk on top of it. So she said, but I mean, it was just once we got in there and they had a clean desk, it was a couple minutes at most just to get it set up.
Right. It's a great time to purge.
Yeah.
And of course, with them being so flexible and affordable, I mean, that to me would be the next step in. Now, another thing that you can do, once you've moved beyond that, is to add some accessories. I mean, once you've introduced the standing workstation, you could add something like an anti-fatigue mat. Today I think we think of them as one and the same.
Yeah.
But originally that wasn't our first thought, that we would have to provide a desk and then have this anti-fatigue mat. I mean, that's something that we just learned over time, especially with ourselves as our first guinea pigs. We stood up, and if you've not done this before, it can be a little tough at first. It's like coming out of an exercise program. I didn't work out all year, and now I've made my New Year's resolution. I'm going to hit the gym. It's a little tough at first, but then you get into a rhythm. Your metabolism increases, but then you also kind of find we have hard floors.
Yep.
The anti-fatigue mat goes a long way. And then, of course, you can add some monitor arms, because that makes standing more comfortable by allowing people to reposition the monitors as they move up and down. Another thing that I'd like to try, so this kind of comes back to something you kind of talked about before, just barely touched on, which was it's about moving your body. It's not so much, it is about sitting and standing, but at the end of the day, it's about active movement, getting people up, getting them walking around, keeping them moving throughout the day. So you can bring in, like our VariChair, which is what we consider to be active seating. So when the difference between a normal chair and a VariChair is that when you when you sit on it, it promotes movement while you're sitting. When you think about the traditional chair, you know, you just want to kind of slouch into it, you want to relax. It's static movement. You've been standing up, you did all this work, now you're going to sit down and do nothing. With a VariChair, no, you keep your body moving. You know, it activates your core, it activates your thighs. It's just another part of the puzzle of keeping an active office place.
Yeah. So how is it that, you know, you've seen various facility executives just kind of dip their toe in the water, if you will, just try out an active office environment? What are we, so when you're out there talking to different facility executives and different companies, how are they just testing the waters, if you will?
Right. Well, we usually encourage people to, you know, test out the concept with something that we call a pilot area. So that's like pick a spot in your office, or maybe you can bring in a sit-stand solution, bring in some of these, you know, types of systems we're talking about. Put a VariChair in there, put a you know, a Cube product in there, and just let people test it out. But you need to give them the time to really test it out. I mean, test it out for yourselves as facility executives, and then let employees try it. But you got to give it some time. Give it probably at least a month.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks to a month, and then you'll start to get some feedback and find out, you know, how much of an impact it really can make.
And how, you know, how people are going to be integrating it into their workplace.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the things that, you know, that I know that facility executives, they deal with a lot is, man, that's just a fad. It's like the pet rock, right? I mean, you know, sadly, you and I both remember the pet rock.
Right. Yeah.
So I
sure
know
do.
that's how old we are. But that's part of, like, you know, it's the, I don't want to buy a pet rock because, you know, I'm afraid that people are just going to throw it away tomorrow. So how is it that, you know, facility executive can be sure that this is an investment that's going to last them, that people are actually going to use and work with, that sort of thing?
Well, you know, we definitely see that companies are moving permanently away from traditional, the sedentary office. So we know that it's not just us. It's not something that we think is a good idea. And I'd say, you know, we've been at this for about 5 years now.
Yeah.
So if it was a fad, I would think that we would have seen it go away by now. But, you know, on top of what we see society doing, because all of society is doing this, you know, and I think in a lot of ways the new generation, the new workforce is demanding this. You know, technology allows people to work from almost anywhere. You know, being tied down to a traditional sedentary office feels like being stuck in the past. I mean, you and I are definitely from the generation of be chained to your desk, and if I can't see you working, you're probably not working. But modern work environments need to be as flexible and adaptable as we are. I mean, employees want an office that's less sedentary, one that can accommodate different work styles, vary tasks, and spur the moment changes and collaborations. The lines are blurred between work time and personal time, and being healthy and active is just kind of part of the deal now. I mean, to put it in another way, people want their work to actually be part of their life, where we used to separate that. You got a work life.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You got your work life, and then I got my personal life.
Or you have your active life, like you're active when you're not at work,
right.
And work would have been your inactive life.
Correct. That's another great way to put it.
Now it's just becoming a whole active lifestyle.
Right. And I would add, as one of the other things that you start to see, you'll start to see modern office places starting to resemble more like homes than office places.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because
is this a prediction? Are we going to write this down?
It's not a prediction. You
All
can
right.
see it out there already.
Fair enough.
You know, it's just in that case, it's going to be more up to the business how far they want to go into it.
Sure.
Because if you create an active office space, that's the first step.
Yep. So, I mean, I know that one of the things is we hear from facility executives are people really going to use these desks? Are people really going to use high adjustable desks? I know some of the data that we have that we do a lot of surveys with people that actually purchase our desks, and they say that they stand on an average 4 to 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. And you know, that just goes to show that people are actually really using these products. They're using and adopting and adapting work to be more active. And you know, I think that that's just as people are sort of reimagining their office, this is just part of that reimagination and how people are changing the office to make things more productive.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you know, the really smart businesses out there understand that health and wellness are closely linked to productivity and profit. So even that old kind of thinking,
yeah,
is changing.
Well, and you take a look at like the best places to work list. I think every year there's like that top 100 places to work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of those companies are our clients, and if you take a look at those companies are investing in active office solutions, active office environments,
Right.
and their profitability outpaces the S&P 500.
Right.
So I mean, it just shows you that investing back into your workforce is a really good, profitable idea for a company.
And if you want to look at recruiting new talent,
Yep.
if you want to look at retaining the ones that you have, it's already happening. If you haven't experienced it for yourself, I would expect you would experience it soon. New potential employees are going to come in, and if some of these things aren't available, but your competition has it, they're
Yep.
more likely to look the other way.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I know that we talked about this a little bit earlier, but one of the things that I think we as a company do great is sort of adjust our product lineup for the various areas. Give me an idea, kind of like the cubes, because I know a lot of people out there, a lot of facility executives, or they're listening to this right now, or they work in the day and they're like, man, I have a cube environment. It's hard for me to even, I can't throw away these hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars that we've got invested in cubes. So what's sort of some of the approaches they can take?
Right, and we recognize that, and that's why we kind of set out to design a whole line of sit-stand desks that fit the standard sizes of cubes and modular workstations that you see in most offices. Like the ones that go in the corner, or sometimes you have a special situation where you need it to be on the side. We have smaller, more portable designs that take up even less space and can be folded and stored away very easily. Both options are sturdy, they're safe, and they offer plenty of workspace. But also the accessories that promote movement, like anti-fatigue mats and like the monitor arms that we talked about, work just fine in a cubicle environment. In fact, we've designed a special monitor arm just for the cube environment.
Yeah. So as we kind of look at this environment as an open office environment, I know that companies are switching from that. Some companies are actually switching to an open office environment from a cubicle environment. So give me some of the pros that people can expect to see as maybe that switch happens. Maybe it's corporate wide, or maybe it's just a section of a company or a new office space. As some of these changes happen and the open office environment becomes more prevalent. Tell me about kind of some of the pros we have there on that.
Well, definitely some of the pros is that it encourages collaboration. I mean, I know we kind of touched on this before. You get better, quicker communication. You get better creativity. Some of that is from not having the walls and the barriers between you and your teammates. And then the other half is the health benefits we talked about. It's about just having a better circulation, better cognitive ability.
Yeah.
And then it encourages learning. So having employees sit in an open environment allows them to be exposed to what others are working on, in addition to that communication that I touched on. And then, of course, there's transparency, because people are a lot more accountable for their time and effort when your colleagues are staring right at what you're doing. Right?
I mean, so I'm not on my Facebook or Twitter account
right.
You're
more likely to spend less time on social media, unless it happens to be part of your job.
Oh, that's
like it is for you.
Yeah, that's well.
But strangely enough, a certain degree of noise, that low-level hum, because I know this is a concern for people, can allow for sharing private conversations between colleagues that may not occur in a quieter, more private space. You get that whisper effect when everything sounds like a pin drop. But in an open office environment where there's a little bit of white noise and some of the hustle and bustle of a busy space, people just relax. They don't feel like they're under the, everybody can hear what they're talking about.
I think I've noticed that more than anything else. Is it in a very strange way? It does offer you an ability to collaborate with a group of people with not feeling like you're yelling down the hall, or your conversation is a burden of noise on somebody else.
Right. There's also the team-based environment where colleagues tend to interact more face-to-face and often build better personal relationships because they're kind of with each other, not isolated in their little silos. It also removes that hierarchical atmosphere that makes management more accessible to employees. I mean, even me and myself, I'm out there with my team.
Yeah.
There's no barriers.
And what about cons? So I know that there's some negative sides to being in an open office environment. What are some of those?
So the same the same noise level that we just talked about as a pro can be a con in some places. For some people it's distracting, particularly for any introverts that you might have on staff. Like, they kind of need that privacy, and speaking of privacy, it can be hard to come by. And another con is it can be easy for the space to look cluttered without proper storage and organization solutions. So as you think about the traditional cube environment, people tend to stuff a lot of things, in the overhead bins, and they stuff. I mean, I think if you look 9 times out of 10, there's nothing but junk in those things.
Right.
So people have to kind of self-discipline to be a little bit cleaner in those spaces.
Yeah. All right. So tell me. So clearly, there's a lot of people that still work from a traditional office, and what are we hearing from facility executives that they're like, yeah, you know what, we prefer this traditional office because of X. What are those reasons?
And there are a lot of pros. I mean, it's favorable for deep concentration. I mean, when you really got to dig in and grind on something, you want to kind of limit your distractions. It also allows management to have private conversations in their individual spaces. Sometimes it's not always convenient, to have a conversation like that in an open space environment. Being visually neat and organized, which can be helpful if you have frequent or unexpected client visits. Kind of goes back to what we said. It's a lot easier to stuff things away. And, face-to-face interaction needs to be intentional. You have fewer of the drive-by distractions, as we like to call them, which is where, people just see you, so they decide to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But on the flip side, what are some of the negatives of working in a traditional office?
Well, I think some of the cons are definitely the cubicles make it more complicated and time-consuming to reconfigure, and to promote that kind of movement. I mean, if you have to take them down, if you have to move them around, there's a lot to consider. Modular workstations or cube components are expensive to purchase and install. There's that interruption of work if you have to move things around. Also can create a stratified environment where managers are cut off from the casual interaction with their team, and where team members are separated from each other for most of the day. It's not as great for encouraging collaborations, especially the spontaneous ones. It often sparks the best creative ideas, and that's very important for me and my design team. Scheduled meetings may be the only time a team interacts on a project.
Yeah.
So that can be tough too, because you can have time wasted if the team is not collaborating frequently enough.
Yeah.
And then environments that are too quiet don't allow for those candid conversations that we talked about.
We already talked a little bit about this, so we won't dive in too deep here, but what are some of the more things that you can do to promote sort of an active office environment?
Well, especially in the cubes and small spaces, make sure that you maximize the available room for movement. I would strategically place your file cabinets and smaller furniture so they don't inhibit the ability to use sit-stand desks or otherwise move around. You want to create walking pathways, places that are meant for those long passages and for people to do walking phone calls. You need to take a phone call. And I create walking maps that allow people to count their steps and track their activity during the day. So, for instance, the distance it takes you to get to the coffee pot, like we talked about earlier, and back to your desk, because that's something that's easily calculated.
I saw one company had done I don't remember who it was. They had painted how many steps it took to get from various parking spots to the front door of the office, and they said actually the faraway spots became much more popular.
Right.
Because people wanted to get all their steps in throughout the day.
Right. Well, that is the phenomenon, right? Once you create a challenge for people, a benchmark to go after, they want to do it.
Yeah.
So they suddenly want to do it.
It was really interesting because they were like, now they're really like, and they had like, spot number 1,000, and that was the 1,000 steps to get to the front desk. So, hey, there's a photo of our office.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, there you are. We already talked about some of the stuff that we've done in our office. Clearly,
right.
You can see some of the things that we've done for our office that kind of help create some active office stuff.
Well, I won't go through the centralized trash cans again, but that's like one of the great things we've done at our office that we think has made a really big difference. We've also installed fewer printers around the office to encourage people to get out of their chairs and away from their desks. I think that's a classic dilemma. Like, I wish I had a printer really close by. Now we're trying to get away from that. We're purposely putting it a little far away so that you can get up and move around. We varied the meeting areas. So collaborative team work areas with standing desks and standing height conference tables are throughout the building. You can book one of those spaces, and then you guys get up and go to it. And then, like you kind of brought up, we have that one central coffee area that encourages people to convene together in one place. And of course, we have the option of standing height tables and optional stools. Yeah, that's the
yeah. Just so at the end of the day, how attainable is an active office for facility executives from companies of 100 to 100,000? Like, what are we really talking about in the attainability here?
Well, I think it depends on the level that you want to go for. So just to kind of recap, you don't have to start from scratch. Some of the small things, moving those cans around, maybe reconsidering the number of printers you have in the office, the signposts you mentioned. You can do a lot of things that are very inexpensive that will promote, active office. The solutions, like we've kind of talked about, the solutions that don't require you to buy all new office furniture. You can just keep what you already have and add these products to it. The new pieces that you do invest in should be easy to install, move, change, and reconfigure. And many, for us, many don't require installers or movers to be involved at all, so they can be implemented very quickly without interrupting business hours. So the ROI can be significant through less employee absenteeism, lower health costs, and improved productivity. So I think it's very, very attainable depending on the level you want to commit to.
Yeah. Listen, I think that is pretty much our presentation for the day. I think we are going to now open it up for questions, and I think Ann's going to hop in now.
Yes. Yeah, great. Thank you, David. Thank you, Brad, for that presentation. And thank you for all that good information. I actually learned a thing or two. And of course, thanks to our audience for listening and for sending in your questions. So we do have a little time for Q&A, and we will launch that now. And we encourage you to continue to send in your questions since we do have a little time. So first off, actually, I'll just jump right into this, and you both addressed this at some point. We have a question here. How do you encourage your people to stand throughout the day if I do buy a height adjustable desk or a table? How do you go about encouraging people? Is that something you run into with clients and their questions?
Yeah, and this is Brad, and one of the things that it's one of those things where once you start standing, you don't really have to encourage it. You just want to do it. It just feels better. You really begin to feel you begin to understand how great you feel throughout the day, and like I said, like we said earlier, I don't stand all day long, and we certainly wouldn't advocate someone standing all day long. It's about movement throughout the day, and that's really the goal. It's getting people moving. So you're sitting down, you're standing up. I stand about 4, maybe 5 hours a day, and then I sit down the rest of the time, and I vary it throughout the day. I have kind of a long commute, so when I get in for my commute, I'm tired of sitting down in the car. So I want to stand up. I want to kind of go through my emails. One of the things that David mentioned that we have is we have standing conference tables. And sometimes when you're in a room for a long time and you're in a long meeting, you want to stand up. So I wouldn't say there's any sort of carrot or stick that we use to encourage people to stand. People really, once they start doing it, they embrace it for themselves.
Can I throw something in on that? I definitely want to add that we've kind of seen this in action. I think one of the most interesting things about what Brad's talking about is that just kind of human desire to want to do it. We've noticed in companies that have never had a standing desk before, once you put one in and that one person stands up, all of a sudden the entire room in an open office concept or even a cubicle environment office where you can see that person, all of a sudden there's this magic that happens and everybody wants to do what that person's doing, and they end up encouraging each other.
Yeah, because you just feel better. I mean, it just makes you, and you realize, man, I'm getting more stuff done. I'm more productive throughout the day. I'm quicker. I think better. I have a clarity of thought that I didn't have in the afternoon. I used to not have. So it really does. It functionally changes the way you go about your working day. And so again, I don't think there's an encouragement that you have to give. You just have to give people the opportunity. You have to be willing. I mean, I think if anything, that's what we see companies are really that have embraced this. It is providing that opportunity for people to stand. It's yes, we're going to partner with you on getting you a height adjustable desk. We're going to find out a way to get you that mat so that you're a little bit more comfortable to stand throughout the day. It's providing those opportunities for employee. That's what's really important. The actual standing part of it, that takes care of itself. That movement throughout the day, that takes care of itself. It's companies, embracing this and understanding, this is really a new reimagined workforce, a reimagined workplace. That is the way we're going to be working going forward. I don't think we'll ever go back to where we spend, $900 on a chair. It's going to be, man, let's set up an active office environment so we don't, and we can just, kind of move from there.
Great, thank you. And so, David, actually, I have a question for you. And could you briefly describe how the first VariDesk was designed? In other words, also what features were most important? And since that first desk, any changes or adaptations to improve upon it?
Yeah, there's actually been quite a bit. I mean, that first desk, like I talked about, was conceived as a shoebox. but as we kind of carried down the path, we kind of used our own kind of internal judgment as to what we should do. I mean, we definitely knew we could do better than a shoebox. I mean, I recall, I know it's a cliche, to say that the first product of any kind was built in your garage, but it literally was built in my garage. And then I brought it in and we tested it and we tried it and said, what could we do better? Our founder and myself and our CEO were all product guys, so we crawled all over this thing. And of course, after we got our first product done, our first what we thought we had as a product, we started reaching out to facility executives and other trusted partners that we thought could give us the right feedback to continue to improve. And I would say one of the things that definitely improved on it, I think manifests itself in the ProPlus 36, is we originally did not have a keyboard that moved with the product. That became like a large kind of consumer demand. It was something that facilities people told us that would be a great adaptation, and we added that, and that's in the ProPlus 36. There's a lot of little nuances like that that have continued to improve, but definitely the product you see today is not quite what it was.
And then, to kind of David's point there, I'd like to just add that, a couple of things is, first off, we're customers of the product itself. We're customers of VariDesk ourselves. And so, we work very hard to make sure we're delighted with the product before we, send it out into the world. And then, one of the things that's great about the way VariDesk is built, the company itself, is we have a lot of interaction with end users. I mean, we're a direct to customer company. So, you don't go through a distributor or a dealer. You come straight to us as the company. And so it allows us to really get a lot of feedback from people that are using VariDesk products every day, and allows us to continually improve the product, improve VariDesk, improve our customer service. So, at the end of the day, I think as the product has changed and morphed and gotten better over time, we as a company have changed and morphed and gotten better over time, because at the end of the day, we are listening and we have a great relationship with the end user of the desk and of the mats and of the VariChairs and of kind of all the different products that we have.
Well, that kind of leads into the last question we have here. So I want to ask you this. If I implement height adjustable desks or other active office elements, what methods can we use to monitor employee satisfaction? Surveys or other means? How can they? I know you had mentioned that some customers, they try 1, 2, 3, or a pilot of some size. So is it related to that, or just an overall buy? How can they monitor that satisfaction or understand, how things are being used once they're in place?
Yeah, one of the things, Hans, that we do a lot is we work with companies on that to make sure that people really do enjoy using VariDesk and still using it throughout the day. So we work closely with companies on helping them build surveys on how people feel throughout the workday. How productive do you feel throughout the workday? How much has your back pain improved now that you're using a height adjustable desk? So we certainly, I would say, a survey instrument is a great way to go about monitoring and measuring how people are using it and how much they enjoy using the VariDesk throughout the day. any company that that's on the call right now or on the webinar right now, we'd be happy to partner with you on that. We would be definitely willing to help you build a robust survey questionnaire for your workforce that could be actually implemented before you ever purchase a Veridesk, and then that way you can really judge the change in improvement in people as they use the Veridesk 1 week later, 3 weeks later, 2 months later. So yeah, for me, surveys, and then just honestly getting out and talking to people that are using them. Make sure that as several people buy them in the office, ask them, get their opinion, so that you're really sort of monitoring how people are using them throughout the day.
Thank you. Thank you. Any additional comments?
I don't have any. I thank you so much for this opportunity. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Great, thank you, and I want to thank you, David and Brad, for this discussion on the Active Office, and of course to Veridesk for sponsoring the event. Thank you to all our attendees. And a recording of this webinar, if you want to re-listen or share it with others, will be available online at facilityexecutive.com, as well as on the Veridesk website at veridesk.com. And to view a list of upcoming webinars from Facility Executive, please visit facilityexecutive.com/webinars. Thanks, everyone, and have a great afternoon.